Dude, what are you doing? Oh, it's a seasonal wall. This was obviously Halloween and, Christmas is in less than a week. Okay, I guess that makes sense, but what are you gonna cover this with? I'm thinking about doing a tribute to my favorite Christmas movie, Gremlins. No way. That's my favorite Christmas movie. I'll let you get to it, man. It's freezing. Stay warm. What's up, guys? My name's Woke1. I'm an artist from Connecticut. As I said before, I am going to be doing a tribute to my favorite Christmas movie, Gremlins. Now, the first thing I got to figure out is how I want to lay this mural out on my wall. And lucky for me, I actually already mapped it out in my iPad using Procreate, because what I did was I mapped out 2 Gremlins. I did Stripe and I did Gizmo during my Twitch live streams. If you guys want to check out my Twitch live streams, be sure to follow along at Woke1 and check the schedule there. And now I'm going to walk you through what I did once I had the characters all mapped out. The first thing I did was open up Procreate on my iPad Pro and do some rough sketches of Gizmo, who you could see on the left, and Stripe, who you could see on the right. Once I was happy with their final poses, and of course giving them a couple accessories like a spray can for Gizmo, a paintbrush, and a roller for Stripe, I made some fine line drawings. That way they would be much more clear and readable. I had an old picture of the wall in my backyard, so the next thing I did was import that photo into Procreate in a different layer. I also had an outline of a woke piece that I wanted to put on this wall. As you can see, I was able to import that layer in and move it around on the wall exactly where I wanted it. I also did this with both of the Gremlins. Now, typically on my backyard wall, I'll go all out and create a background around all the characters, but I knew it was going to be cold, and I thought back to the original cover of the movie. This would be a case of less is more. Just nice, vibrant colors with a little drop shadow to just accent and complement everything. All right, now that that's all mapped out, I can get some rest and get a fresh start in the morning. Unless, of course, the Gremlins come. Just kidding. I mapped this out last night with a projector. I don't want to hear any crap for having a projector. It's my backyard, so I can cheat all I want. You guys have seen me freehand. You guys have seen me do doodle grids. I can do it. This saves time. And don't ask what type of projector I use, because it's some crappy one I bought on Amazon years and years ago. I need a better one. It's freezing out. So on the verge of talking about freezing and everything, we're going to go over some tips to stay warm while painting outside in the winter. Obviously, a hat and jacket would be great. I'm going to grab that in a second. But hot hands. I want to go over hot hands. I like to tear these open, and what I like to do, it's like 20 degrees out. You can probably see my breath. Yeah. I'm all shaken up so that they warm up. And then in terms of gloves, they get garden gloves with, like, the rubber, regular garden gloves. Put a latex glove over it, but tuck the hot hands inside the latex area so it's in the palm. That way you don't have to go spend money on heated gloves, which is great. But honestly, you can still paint pretty easily with these, because you just move it around and it will help hold the can with all the heat on the palm. I gotta put that on better in a sec. Another thing is to take another one, shake it up. I put it in my bag of paint so my paint stays warm. And if you're in a safe, controlled environment, of course, start a fire. Start a fire. All right, let's get to it. I'm going to start by getting the graffiti portion done first. All right, so as I mentioned before, I wanted this mural to be based mainly off the cover of the movie. Now, we already know that Gizmo is mainly a combination of browns with a little bit of pink hues. We know that Stripe is mostly those green colors, and that the font is just red. But of course, I don't want to leave this just one solid tone of red, so I decided to create a gradient from dark to light, starting at the bottom and gradually getting lighter towards the top. Once the gradient was done, I wanted to add a little bit of highlight in some of the sections just to create some light sources. And for even more contrast, I decided to add some shadows as well. I like to repeat some of the colors that I know I'm going to use across the wall so that everything looks a little more uniform. And I knew that I'd be using some of these tones in Gizmo, so I thought, why not replay them in the outline of the graffiti as well? Once the letters were outlined in that one solid tone, it was time to add a little more contrast and create some depth to the 3D. To do this, I'm going to spray some darker tones to create some shadows, as well as some lighter tones to create some highlights. I also added some shadow at the top of the red in the letters to create a little more depth. And here's the highlights I mentioned adding earlier. It's freezing. I think the graffiti portion's done besides a little shadow I want to do underneath. Now it's time to figure out, am I going to work on Gizmo or am I going to work on Stripe? I'll flip a coin to decide. Forgot to tell you what it's going to be. Heads will do Gizmo, tails will do Stripe. It's tails. Alright, we're going to get Stripe done first. He's a little more elaborate, so that kind of makes sense. And with that coin toss, my fate was decided. It's actually a fun fact that for almost my entire graffiti career, I have used the coin to decide what I'm going to do. It started back in the early 2000s with my buddy Queso, who you've probably seen in some of my other videos. Our favorite was if we couldn't decide if a spot was too risky to paint or not, we would definitely flip a coin. Typically, I'll pick heads for whatever I'm more in favor of, such as Gizmo. But the fact that this landed on tails was telling me I had to get Stripe done. Ultimately, I knew this was going to be a better option. There were a lot more details to do on Stripe, so it made sense for me to get more of the tedious stuff done earlier when I had more energy and then save the lighter work for later, especially in this freezing cold weather. Did I mention it was in the 20s? Anyways, let's cover a little bit of the process that I'm using on Stripe. Typically, I base my midtone and then work up the contrast by adding highlights and shadows. This is the same process that I used earlier when I was working on the graffiti. I used the midtone of beige to line around the entire piece and color it solid, and then built up contrast by adding shadows and highlights. I use the same exact process when I'm coloring in my characters, but after that, I go around them with a sharp outline. I'm sure I could get away with doing characters without an outline. That's actually how I used to do a lot of my characters back in the day, but I feel like a nice clean outline just helps the character pop out and just looks like a sticker, that nice clean finish of definition. Maybe in this year to come, I'll learn how to do a little more of a blend of the two. Like on this one, I didn't particularly line the hair, I just kind of left it open because I felt like hair should be loose and light. It doesn't necessarily need a hard outline. So I guess my point is I'm picking and choosing where to put my outlines. As long as there's enough definition and contrast, I'm happy. In the end, it's all just about creating a bunch of layers for a final product. And of course, while you're creating those layers, you need to know exactly how and where to put those layers and how you're going to shade them to get that desired effect that you want. A good example of this is the right lens of the glasses. I have that transparent look where you could still see the eyeball while looking through the lens. Some artists may try to achieve this look by using transparent spray paint, but I found that transparent spray paints will just kind of dull out the definition because you're just spraying more layers on top and it's blocking the dark tones and there's not as much of a rich definition. Instead, I prefer to use a variety of red tones to achieve this effect. I do want to make sure I mention some of the issues that I did have with the paint reacting poorly with the cold weather. Now, I knew the paint would sputter a little more instead of having such a clean, straight stream. It sounds so bad out of context, but anyways, you know what I'm saying. But the other problem that I faced was that the paint was just not drying as fast. And I happened to catch it on camera here while I was working on the shirt. Now, you could see I based the shirt in a mid-tone of gray. But as soon as I layer the lighter tone over it, it starts to have a weird reaction. Luckily, after a second pass and a little more of a dry time, I was able to successfully make it work. But setbacks like this in slower dry times in cold weather, not a good combo. Stripe is finally done. I'm losing steam. I'm also losing daylight. I gotta get on Gizmo now. I remember looking at the reference and realizing that Gizmo's ears had kind of this reddish brown, almost orange with a hint of pink. And I didn't have a color like that. So after I based my brown and beige tones, I carefully blended some of the pink over it to create that tone. Other than that issue, I followed the same process that I did with Stripe. However, there was one major problem. That is that the sun was starting to set. Now, I'm okay with the normal race against daylight and trying to finish before the sun goes down, but there was a lot more involved this day. For instance, I was already cold, and if the sun goes down, I know I'm gonna get colder. At this point, my hot hands had stopped giving off heat because I had been using them for so long. My fire was dying out, and I had already wasted so much of the day going back and forth from a woodpile to the fire trying to keep it burning. I guess you could say I was literally and figuratively burning out. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, it's your backyard, at your own house. Just go inside and finish it tomorrow. But when I checked the weather app for tomorrow, it said it was supposed to snow, and the rest of the week would be filled with rain. Honestly, even if there wasn't going to be snow the next day, the thought of bundling up all over again and doing this process just made me not want to. I just wanted to push through and get it over with. All I kept thinking about was how nice it was going to be to have a complete wall and go inside where it's nice and warm and just relax. Yes, nice thoughts. Nice thoughts are what's going to get me through the rest of this. Speaking of nice thoughts, let's thank those nice paid Patreon members now. And if you guys want to sign up or check out the tiers I have available, head on over to Patreon and check out Woke One. Now, normally I would say let's get back to the video, check out the process, see the rest of this character. But my camera had other plans. It was so cold that my camera actually stopped working. So instead, I'm going to share with you guys a special announcement. If you guys like these characters, I have great news. I made prints. They're available on my website. And if you're seeing this video early enough, you can take advantage of my Christmas special. That's right, guys. At woke1.com from now until December 24th, there is 20% off prints, 20% off original artwork, 20% off sticker packs, and I even went to 50% off some of my old t-shirts. If you haven't been to the website in a while, be sure to check it out because I am constantly updating it. There is plenty more merch available, so check it out and maybe pick yourself up something. And now, I'll get you right back to the wall. Alright, I wish I could say this was fun, but I'm going to be real. It's been real cold, and I can't wait to get back inside. This project was a little rushed. I did find out that the spray paint was not acting how I usually expect it to. A lot of sputtering due to the cold weather, but nonetheless, I finished. I'm pretty happy with the results. I wish it was a little better, but I did the best I could with the circumstances given. Anyways, I want to wish you guys all a very, very happy holidays. I also want to know in the comments, what's your favorite Christmas movie? Without further ado, here it is, the final product.